I spoke to people here on Nahimov Square exactly 5 years ago, immediately after the so-called referendum. I came back to tell the stories of those whom I met in 2014. We went to Yalta, Alushta, Bakhchisarai and Simferopol. Russian flags, posters, celebrations. They were present 5 years ago, and they remain. That is what strikes you, but the reality is not so obvious in Crimea. The most important things manifest during kitchen conversations among those you can trust. I remember very well how in March 2014, people who went to pro-Ukrainian rallies were literally afraid to show up in public immediately after the annexation. And things have only gotten worse. What is remarkable is that it didn't merely affect the politically engaged ones. Everybody believes themselves to be in the minority. It's dangerous to speak out, even for those who didn't take any action, those who simply remain Ukrainian citizens, having refused a Russian passport, those doing business, or those who happen to be Crimean Tatars. All Russian citizens have equal rights and obligations. They are provided by the Constitution of Russia. What rights do we have? The most important of them are the right to freedom and personal inviolability. This is what the section "We are citizens of Russia" sounds like in the textbook from which the Crimean children study on the occupied peninsula. There is a section on the President of Russia, Vladimir Putin. We have a quick look. There is a lot of talk about textbooks and the way children are officially educated in schools, which syllabi are used. But what's interesting is that the section on the Kiev Rus doesn't use the title Kiev Rus, calling in the ancient Rus instead. But at least Kiev appears on one of the maps in this way.
We ask the Almighty to grant us peace with all the people living here. We asked Allah that He give Putin a little bit of justice, reason, that He remove his troops from here, and that all the soldiers who came here would return safe and sound to their families, to their mothers, to their wives. We want the same peace reinstated that there was before they came. I want us to be together.
Ukrainian and Crimean, we are together must be.
Which of my dreams could have come true? I walk with caution, I live alone, and therefore must be alert all the time. I do not know what awaits me. For one thing, I can't afford to speak my mind, to speak out. There is none of that. I'm even afraid of sharing posts on the internet. My pension is paid on time. It's around $230. Well, I live alone, so I manage to get by somehow. Maybe others get more, but as far as I know, it is considered just about bearable. Because I am in my homeland in Crimea, my Crimean Tatar aura supports me. I have many relatives here, many acquired friends. I draw strength from them. What matters is that my home is my castle. I do not feel calm. Maybe it's because of age or illness, but anyway, I'm still expecting some sort of a catch. There is this feeling of constant restlessness. There is no peace as such. I don't know what it depends on.
Кто знает, от чего это зависит.
Restaurant Musafir was one of the most famous Crimean Tatar institutions. That's how it was before the occupation, and in 2014. On the very day of the so-called referendum, we were working here. Just like now, there was a Crimean Tatar flag here, and below you could watch the Russian military engineer pass by.
I can influence others by going to any meeting that will defend the rights of the Crimean Tatars. I have a son who is finishing 11th grade. What diploma will he receive? A Russian one? If our parents, let's say I'm talking specifically about my parents in Crimea, who were deported, that is, they survived it, and they got, when they were already being resettled there in Uzbekistan, they were living in conditions where there was neither gas nor water supply.
In Crimea, Musafir has been closed since 2015. There were plenty of lawsuits. They couldn't re-register it. In any case, the owners opened two very successful restaurants in Kyiv, the capital of Ukraine. But Lenur, the restaurant's manager, stayed in Crimea in Simferopol, as did many others who have personal circumstances. After that, he had to work both in a taxi and a guard, literally of the same restaurant. We came back to have a chat with him. He is currently in Simferopol. Нині він перебуває в Сімферополі.
By the way, these are the same napkin holders as we have here. We brought them in. That is, they were born here. If a large number of Crimean Tatars leave, then I don't know how things will turn out later. Someone should be here. All the same, the pitcher goes off into the well, but is broken at last, and at some point they will get out of here. We are waiting for the show when they will start running away, leaving suitcases behind. Don't supply them with Ukrainian produce. Seriously, don't. Let them, excuse my French, eat their own crap. In 2015, the restaurant, or cafe, was closed. It was the best cafe in Crimea. It was closed because somebody did not like the cafe supposedly being a sponsor of the Majlis of the Crimean Tatar people. It wasn't just a closure. The very first search took place at our cafe. 15 people came. I remember myself saying, hold on, what are their machine guns for? Machine gunners keep coming. It's for our safety, they said. Wait, I said, I'm the only man here. The rest of the team is female. What kind of danger do we present to you? In the end, there were court hearing after court hearing for ages. And then it turned out that one of the courts, having tried different methods, called land misuse one of the reasons. At the same time, no permission for re-registration was issued. Whilst I was there, a car arrived. They glanced over, looked around, and then came up. I said, do you need something? Can I help you? No, we are just looking. It's a beautiful cafe and all that. I said, yes, and what did you want? It's currently closed. They said, do you know if the owners would be willing to sell? I do know. It's not for sale. Bearing in mind that despite everything, we as the nation of the Crimean Tatars are on our land, and thus all these objects are ours, they belong to our people, we should save it all, so that when the time comes we can open up and work for the good of Ukraine. We even bought herbal teas here, and if someone was going to Ukraine, they would take them there, so they could make tea from Crimean herbs. If I were single, I would gladly leave everything behind and go there. I could at least get a job as a waiter. To be honest, I have been wanting to go for a long time, but it's a while since I was in Kiev. I just went to Kherson region in Ukraine. Ukraine is in the process of reformation and cleansing. The state is cleaning itself.
We talk with the Crimeans at length, but not on the camera, because the risks and threats are real. When I spoke to the first relatives of political prisoners in 2015, there were just a few of them. We knew them all by name. Now it's up to 70 people who are behind bars in Russia and occupied Crimea, mostly Crimeans and Crimean Tatars, who are accused of extremism and terrorism. Over these years, relatives of political prisoners have organized themselves into the Crimean Solidarity Movement, which helps the court process. Also, there is an organization called Bizim Balalar, which financially supports children of political prisoners. When I initially came, there were just several dozens of them. Nowadays, there are 111 such children. And if in the first years spouses and mothers willingly communicated with the journalists they wanted to be heard, we will tell what happened, and after a few months our husbands will be released. As the years passed, the situation has gotten much worse. They are genuinely worried because searches were carried out in the homes of the children and wives of the political prisoners. We went to visit the mother of Volodymyr Baluch, Natalia. Volodymyr Baluch is a Ukrainian who, according to a fabricated case, is accused of storing weapons. In reality, Volodymyr just hung up a Ukrainian flag in his house.
I hung it up around December 2013. To be honest, at first I had this long pole on my tractor. I did not have a Ukrainian flag, so I put up a red and black one. And then, when it was stolen from here, I got myself a Ukrainian one and placed it on my house, but it was hung on the other side.
He only ever asks, "How is your health, Mom? What's going on with you? How are things?" That's it, and nothing else. We managed to transfer some money just yesterday. They bought him some groceries and cigarettes. I don't know anything. He doesn't tell me anything about his health. He just says, "I'm fine, Mom." That's it. Not a word about his health. I receive a pension, Natasha receives a pension, so we try to use it all to help him, to send him food packages, because he doesn't eat whatever they are given in prison. He refuses to eat their food. He said, "I will not eat out of the terrorists' hands. I won't have anything from their troughs." Just what the people bring me. The Crimean Tatars helped me a lot. Mostly it was them. I wished him yesterday, "Son, pray to God, ask forgiveness, and that you return from there healthy." I only got to see him twice, in Rozdolne when he was still on trial. I did not see him since. My daughter-in-law went to Kerch. She was refused a visit, but when his daughter came, she went to Kerch and she did see him. She said, after the hunger strike, he looked, well, he already resembled a skeleton here in Rozdolne. He has been like this from a young age. He is all for Ukraine from childhood. He read Ukrainian literature and knew all the heroes. That's just his nature.
This used to say welcome in Ukrainian, always. Our school always had, even in Soviet times, welcome written in Ukrainian at the entrance.
Everything was Ukrainian here. We had Ukraine. Everything that there was in mainland Ukraine, we had it too. The books, there was a school with Ukrainian instruction. Well, not Ukrainian, the school had Russian instruction, but Ukrainian was taught too. The literature, the language, but the school was Russian. Russia came, and suddenly everyone turned out to be Russian. There are people from Ukraine. I know their parents, we used to work together. Their children all became Russian. Yes, the views are changing now. They are changing a lot now. People have now had a taste of Russia. Previously it was like, come on, when Russia comes, we will be getting brand new tractors and cars and everything. They genuinely believed it would be so. But as the years pass, everything just keeps getting worse. You have to be aware of what you can tell whom. I don't stay in touch with anyone, apart from those that I know that I can talk to, with whom I can get it off my chest, and they can unburden themselves.
Our people, I mean those who ran to vote in the referendum at a breakneck pace, they love their freebies and all that. They didn't think about changing their lives for the worse, but rather about changing their owner from the bad one to the good. They just need a good boya. Everyone believes in Russian fairy tales. They believe in sitting on the stove and then pike being caught out of the blue. Everyone thought they caught pike, so there's no surprise that we can't have any good changes here. It's only getting worse.
It started off with those flags. People almost lost their minds. Everyone kept running to the village council, everywhere. Well, there's nothing to pick at, not the flags. There is no such law that forbids you to hang a flag, or anything like that. I remember the last time when he came from mainland Ukraine, and he brought along those flags, and it seems that he had ordered a street sign, labeling the street in honor of the Heavenly 100. And he put it up in his house. He got a visit from the village council officials, who ordered to take off the sign and the flag. or else bad things will happen. But he refused to. They came back for research in a day or two. They turned his house upside down, yet didn't find anything, so they left and came to me. About 4 cars came, with masked men. Cars were without number plates. They came after a terrorist. You see? The whole village was buzzing. People can't make anything out. Everyone is saying that Balakh is a terrorist. So then, they came for the second time. They had already found the cartridges there. What kind of a fool would just lay out cartridges in the attic of his house? No, I won't ask for pardon, because my son just wouldn't understand it. I won't ask. May God help us. We have faith in God and the people. People do help a lot. We wouldn't handle it alone if it weren't for the people. We couldn't possibly do it on our own. It's the 3rd year now.
Ах, ты мой хороший, ты мой красавец. Яшочка. Ти Яшка, да? Що? Людей много, да? Ти не привик. Привик з бабою.
This is one of the beaches in Yalta. Obviously, a lot of people rightly complain about the fact that tourism in Crimea was destroyed after annexation. That there are problems with the fact that the beaches are being closed off from the people, that the real estate is being transferred into private hands. There are quite a few critics. There are those who denied it all. They say that everything is fine, there is bureaucratization, but at least there is order now. The latter are, of course, proponents of the Putin Aksyonov regime. As the rule, the following are heard the most, either the hard critics of the regime or their supporters. But I think if you spend time here, you will realize that a large number of people try to stay away from the politics as much as possible. It is difficult for Ukrainian journalists to speak to such ordinary people. They exercise care, of course. They fear that those who came from Kiev can somehow exploit the material in a certain context to suit their needs, or that we trigger problems for them, even though we just want to talk about the ordinary things. Our interviewee is exactly that. She works in the service industry and speaks with a large number of people, including those who don't like to whine and those who want to work and grow. We can't show her face, even though we only talk about everyday things.
Видели море, видели горы, видели белые ночи. Вдаль линолеум, санаторий в дорогом городе Сочи. Это устали загорать, что решили впредь.
We carry on with our lives, despite everything, despite the difficulties that everyone who does something in life encounters. We continue to live, work, fantasize and realize our dreams. The difference in visitors is great, of course. It used to be 30% Russians, 40% Ukrainians and 30% from outside. Now it's obviously 95% Russians and 5% from the rest. Though I have to say that last year many of our friends from Ukraine and Kiev specifically started to come back. It's the desire to see us and to return to Crimea as a place of sun, sea, mountains, and people that are here, rather than Crimea as a political unit. Initially, there were substantial problems and you couldn't even have a card terminal in a restaurant, because the banking system did not function. There used to be just one bank servicing everyone. Now there are no such issues, almost all cards are accepted. Previously you had to bring along bags full of cash for your stay. These days every place takes cards. Investments are coming in slowly. Import is growing and you can see foreign companies opening up their representative offices here. There are almost no opportunities to smuggle now, as the government took control of these processes. The disbanded enterprises are big. They have representative offices in Crimea and they continue to work or start working from scratch in a new legislative field. But even the quite wealthy guys coming from Russia, they also realize and say, "You lot are rather dear. Everything here is." There are lots of guys who make their own cheese and milk. Others keep their own gardens. It's like an alternative to the global monopolization of the food that is on offer now. Living simply to express your life stance means attributing yourself to some political stratum. I believe it's fundamentally wrong. My friends and I believe that we are Crimeans. We are from Yalta. We have sea and mountains. We were born here, and there's no such distinctions as ours or yours. It's ours because we are here. We are locals. We create the atmosphere, which makes everyone come here. There are guys who left for Kiev. They tried their luck there. Their businesses just did not pick up. They found it tough. But they sold their houses here, and they had to come back later. Then there are others who left and stayed there developing, and everything went well for them. Nightlife here is non-existent as such. We realize that there is not a single nightclub in Yalta nowadays. It's obvious that Yalta is attractive for people who used to live in Murmansk or some other podunk town, which come complete with factories, steamboats, without seas, without mountains, without a beautiful picture. And this resettlement of such people in our city is currently ongoing in great numbers. It's mostly retirees, because, well, what's the difference where they can get their pension? The youth, on the contrary, wants to make trucks to some places more modern, seeing as Ukraine is no longer a very favorable place, because of the borders and some problems relating to crossing them. And even those guys whose children are currently studying in Ukraine, or whose parents live in Ukraine, it's very difficult for them to transfer money to a card, or even send some parcel or a treat. Therefore, it makes sense to consider large cities in Russia or abroad for further development. My daughter was in substitution therapy for 7 years. This was our life, and this was a normal life for us. And I was calm knowing that she wouldn't go back to hard drugs. I wouldn't have to experience this grief and trouble again. But now it turns out that they simply don't give us the chance to live and survive. So this happened. One day we were told, that's it, there's no program any longer. All of your drug dosages will be severely lowered over the coming months. But I, as a second-degree disabled person, can't possibly survive such a radical reduction in dosage. I can't, physically. My body didn't even have time to adapt or adjust. It leads to constant pains, constant weakness and constant depression. Everything was fine. Legal problems came to an end. Our family started getting along.
We filmed this woman, Oksana, who was on substitution therapy when I was here 5 years ago. You seem to know something that could have happened to her.
Yes, you know, she's a very good girl, but she has a proclivity for self-destruction. While she was on the program in Crimea, she tried to destroy herself once, but her mother saved her. By the second time, her mother didn't watch close enough, or she couldn't get enough support. She died right in the hospital. She had a complicated groin surgery, I think. The vein was completely excised. When I was living in Kiev, we used to see and support each other. But loneliness broke her. This human is no more. We can say that. She was a good human. When I found out, I broke down in tears, to be honest. It makes me sad that all these deaths are in vain.
There were 800 patients on substitution therapy in Crimea. The practice allows patients to replace street drugs with opiate substitutes. People could work, live, have children under medical supervision. But this practice is banned in Russia. I met some patients in 2014 here in Crimea who said, we might die. And that's what happened. Now we hear stories of terrible death. Some people hung themselves, others jumped from the 9th floor, or just died on the streets. Here we also speak to former patients of substitution therapy who managed to pull through. They have a lot of acquaintance. They know those people who died. They don't show their faces because they have things to lose, they have families. Besides, they say, it's not worth the risk. Who cares about the fate of the drug addicts? There is no official statistics as how many of those 800 people died. It's partly concealed. It's easy to write off a death of a former drug addicts to something else. Those we speak to claim it's hundreds of people. It's hard to confirm, but you can just hear their stories. I understand that there is no exact number, but when I came 5 years ago, we knew there were 800 patients. What happened to those people? Many say that some of them died.
Yes, it's true. Many of them died. Many simply couldn't handle abstinence. The majority of them just had nothing to live for in their lives. They had some problems that they could overcome thanks to this program, so at least before, they did not have to worry about their health.
What do you know personally? Did you find out more about those you've encountered?
I saw a guy in Simferopol, for instance. He was living with his brother. Yes, they did find themselves in a difficult situation. They lost their apartment, but they were able to work and rent a place. Everything seemed alright. Now I learned that he hung himself, that Misha couldn't go on. He is quite well known. Now I will call him by name. I will say that he lived near the dispensary in Mariino. Everyone knows him. Unfortunately, Misha killed himself. Then, I know that a lot of people in Simferopol continue to use drugs, but now it's street drugs. That means we are talking about a direct threat to life. Most of these people suffer from chronic diseases. Zhenya Kulichenko is another fairly well-known, colorful personality. She went to prison, received a rather long term, a couple of years. As far as I was told in Simferopol on the way back, after she was freed, she died. And such cases are commonplace. My neighbors here in Yalta, this couple rented out apartments, several of them. They were doing well, everything was looking up. Then they naturally switched to bad street drugs, and it's obvious how they ended up. I recently met another man in Simferopol. He obviously takes street drugs. I know a family, husband and wife, a small kid who was born thanks to this program. Everything was okay. Now the child is abandoned, he is with the grandparents, while his dad and mom consume street trash. There is no help. You are, a priori, deprived of your civil rights, only on the basis of... So it's not just discrimination, in my opinion, it's some sort of sadism, racism, chauvinism, all of those simultaneously. Even fascism, I would say. A human cannot be deprived of civil rights just because he is sick. And how many more are there that I do not know of in Kerch, in Yevpatoria, in Feodosia? The number is abnormal, I reckon. I reiterate, if out of 800, a couple of hundred are still alive, this would be very good news.
I believe that the government of both Crimea and Russian Federation knowingly killed 400 people because they were aware of this problem. They did this just by treating those people as inhuman. I would like us to be heard, not only in Ukraine, but all over the world. The fact that this Crimean Spring, which has been ongoing for 5 years, this anniversary, it took its toll. I pray to God that no one falls into the same vice that these people fell into, those who died and those who couldn't withstand.
For those people who have already lost it, I don't know. We can't help those who passed away. But as a warning to others, people should understand that the principle of humanism are key for humanity. Where would we be heading if it weren't for the humanism?